All right, hey, welcome, folks. This is going to be your Monkey Nation, and man, I am just chilling it, kicking it with the infamous Juan O Savin today. And man, I'm really interested to hear what this guy has to say. So, Juan, with that, welcome, brother.
Hey, I've listened to your show so many times. I have friends that forwarded to me. Of course, you and I talked just a minute ago off the air, and a couple of them are fairly. Um, they have quite a history in the ATC system, and so you've got there may be people that critique you on some of the stuff that you say, question it or something like that. But let me just say this. As I described to you, you can't get any further up the pecking order from several of my very close friends, one in particular. And they have a lot of respect for what you're doing, and you get their attention. So for those that might wonder, people that really, 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 really are fairly far up the food chain within the ATC systems networks have a lot of respect for you. They themselves pay attention to what you're showing and saying, and I think that's quite a compliment as to the quality, the integrity of what you're doing. And I think it's been very served a very important role for people who are just hanging on by the fingernails what's happening in the country right now. Yes, it kind of demystifies a little bit. There's a lot of mystery still and stuff that you find out what's really going on, but at least people see that, some real information that gives them a little sense of maybe what's happened in the country. We're still here.
Yeah, for sure. So with that said, what are your thoughts on what's happening with this country? Do you think there's any coming back from this, getting the genie back in the bottle, or you think we're headed down a path that's going to be pretty rough?
Short term, we got a pretty turbulent next several months, and I think really every day going into the fall here it starts to pick up and get a little bit more tense and gripping. That said, I don't see this as being super long term. I mean, you can have some drama. It's not going to be over even in 6 months or a year or two. But the country's a lot more resilient than some of the people give us credit for. There's an old saying within the history buffs that no country was ever conquered from outside, that wasn't first conquered from within. And for all that there's a lot of bad guys, the devil himself, and his minions that are trying to cause us to run ourselves off the rails, to lose favor with the God in heaven, to bring a curse onto ourselves by our actions. For all that, the people that are God-minded, that the country, there was a perspective in the pilgrims who came here for religious reasons long before the founding, for religious freedom. There may be all sorts of mischief that occurred in the founding of the nation, and some of the players involved that you have to wonder which God they were really serving or referring to. But at the end of the day, there's always been a core looking to a God in heaven as where our strength came from, our protection comes from, our blessing comes from, and that's still there. You can say anything you want. The reality is that's why we're having a fight, is because God's people haven't given up. And so do we come through this? Yeah. Are we all going to get rattled a bit as we go through it? I would venture a strong guess that that's going to be the case. I doubt there's anybody, even in this audience, even when you kind of know certain things going on behind the scenes, that won't be rattled by these events. You just got to take a deep breath and then where are you looking for protection from? You're looking for men, from political leaders, from your finances, from, you got cash in the bank and silver and food hidden away or something like that. You might get really clocked in this. You might get really tested. But if you're looking to God in heaven, we got this. It's going to be tough, but we're going to get through this, and we're going to be a better country afterwards. Every once in a while, we were all teenagers. Your room gets pretty cluttered. It gets messed up. Mom finally says, okay, that's enough. You're not doing anything till the room's cleaned up. Our house is out of order. We got to clean things up, get it back under control. And we're going to. And then we're going to go out and help the rest of the world get their house cleaned up too. We're going to get this planet back online.
Yeah, it's a good point, man. And I've often said that, where people are, don't put your faith in man, put your faith in God, and you'll get through all this just fine and dandy. I mean, there are definitely going to be some hiccups, like you said. But now, do you think civil unrest is on the horizon? I've many people that I talk with that, that do a lot of the prepping and intelligence folks that that are active military. They all, I'm hearing them tell me that they've been told to, get your affairs in order, get food supplies, things like that. Things are going to get a little dodgy here, in the short term. So are you hearing anything like that as well? You think this civil unrest is going to be something that's getting ready to shake loose, or you think, this is just going to be normal summer?
Well, there's a particular person that put something out the other day about some of the military folks being told by command folks that they needed to prep for something. That particular one, I don't have high confidence in, because there's been a number of times when they came across a little bit Chicken Little, if you will. And, I think I have as good a contacts out here in the community as anybody. And to telegraph your moves too much is a problem. And a lot of these next moves are not being given up or telegraphed. Loose lips sink ships. That said, there is zero question that, for example, in England, one of the videos that came through from folks over there that was sent to me about 2 weeks ago, and again about a week ago, showing that the shelves were just starting to go bare. And then we have all sorts of reports. I'll use one example from the aircraft side of supply shortages. Had somebody that flew into Reno the other day, and they were flying over from, I believe, Salt Lake City. And they had to go past Reno, fuel up in San Francisco, because en route they found out there wasn't going to be fuel to get the aircraft out of Reno. And so they had to go to San Francisco, fuel up enough so they had fuel when they got to Reno to fly back out. Well, what kind of a supply chain issue is that? Is it just something where an airport manager, a local refinery, trucks, something didn't, a pipeline isn't working right, whatever? What's the deal? Was it a local problem where they just had a pump on a fuel tank that wasn't working, that give them access to something? Could have been that simple. But I thought that was like a little hint. Maybe there's something else going on here. And we've had reports of shortages. Now, I will tell you this. Back in the 70s, when we had the fuel refinery problem here, it was portrayed as though it was an oil crisis. It wasn't an oil crisis. It was a refinery crisis in the 70s. And it was somewhat artificial, where we had to go to odd and even days to get gas at the gas station. And then as soon as people knew that, there was supposedly a shortage, well, everybody's racing to get their gas tank filled up, all the gas cans filled up, everything else. And that surge caused a different kind of problem. So is there empty shelves at Costco today? They got big warehouses. Could be, it could just be that suddenly one day there was just, everybody kind of gets a little extra panicky, and the trucks weren't bringing over the loads as quickly as all of a sudden this surge comes on. You can cause a disruption in the supply chain with just on time delivery. But that said, and I've mentioned it in a couple of other shows, we are looking at some kind of a fairly turbulent, disruptive fall. And so getting a few things in place, and so you can, this isn't the end of the world, but you could have a bumpy several months. And so I wouldn't be a dope of, things that are critical that you can't really easily live without, whether it be medication or other stuff. I'd have a little reserve and keep it that way, especially through the next 6 months. And I think you'll find that you might have a little burp in there, here or there, where you need to be able to get by, not just for yourself, but, a lot of the people in your audience have younger kids, college age kids, stuff like that. They're not going to store up. So you better have a little extra, or they're going to come over and raid the cookie jar, and then you won't have any cookies for yourself. So, set a little bit aside and understand that, it's not the end of the world, but it could be less comfortable for a period of time, and plan accordingly.
Yeah. Yeah, that's no doubt, man. Anybody that's ever raised kids and especially teenagers and kids going into college, man, they descend on your house like locusts, man. They will devour a week's worth of groceries in a day, It's insane. Yeah, that will definitely
Well,
put a damper in your plans.
it's not just them, it's their friends. If they know that you got a bunch of all their friends show up with them, they have a party, and then it's gone between them and all their friends.
Oh yeah. Yep. For sure. For sure. So you heard about this whole thing in this NATO thing in Norfolk, Virginia, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on that?
Non-event.
I've seen
Non-event.
some people kind of do a panic where they're saying, "Oh, NATO's taking over Norfolk," and that's not the case. I went back and read a bunch of articles, and this whole thing that you're familiar with IOCs, right? Initial
Oh yeah.
capabilities and right operational capabilities, right? And so there's certain levels that were taking place back in Trump's day, 2018, and so this thing's been on radar for a little while.
Yeah, that's just is you have a lot of people that are on the outside of things, and they things get conveyed in a certain way, and all of a sudden, it can be amped up to something that just isn't the way it works. And it's like all the reports of all the German aircraft, taking over, bases in southern, New Mexico and Texas and all that stuff. We bring people over here to train all the time. You might remember that back when the Las Vegas shooting incident occurred, we had the Saudi Air Force over here doing red flags out of Nellis. And, we had, huge percentage of their pilot corps here training. So we bring them in all the time because we might have to fly with some of these other people in an actual real event. We got to have, so we can function together. You don't do that. You fight like you train. And if you don't train together, you can't fight together. And that's just facts of life. You'll be killing each other off and having all sorts of issues. So, NATO, we're still a member of NATO. We might have a bunch of issues with NATO people, but we are technically still a member of NATO. And there's certain things. And by the way, we're the big dog. So they got to come over and get a piece of it. And that's just the way it is. Get over it. Relax. That's not the problems that we're really dealing with. And those people that are amping stuff like that up, they distract from the real issues, and it's a Chicken Little thing. I would rather have people be a little more steady at the wheel, and then the real stuff, you're not drained on this falsehoods. When the real thing comes up, now you can have an honest conversation. You cry wolf too many times, and when the real thing comes, they're not listening to you, and that's one of those ones that's just.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I see a lot of folks doing that where they're they are the sky's falling, and they act like they've got a lot of intel on stuff and it's just it comes and goes, and nobody really holds them accountable for it, and it's unfortunate because it makes you know, a lot of us patriots who are, you know, wanting some hope in all of this, you know, makes them, you know, just to the point where they get tired of listening to it and they're giving up, you know, and, um, but you're right. You're spot on about how other countries
I
come
think a lot
over
of the
here.
exhaustion.
Yeah.
Well, I
Yeah,
think a
exactly.
lot of the exhaustion that's happening within the community right now is because of just exactly that. They've gotten all amped up, and then they get dropped, and their emotions are just stretched to the breaking point. And so, especially at this moment when we're this um, keyed up and there's so much in play, this isn't the time to go off half cocked. You're not going to be able to get toilet paper or beans any day. You know, get a year's supply. You don't
Yeah.
need a year's supply, but you may need a few weeks. You know, act accordingly. And you know, this is, you just have to. This particular moment is not about the end of the world. This is about a reset, and the question is who's going to own the far side of the reset. And the reality is, the good guys, for all that people are portraying that they've lost their way and they can't hold control of everything. You know, it's like saying that Trump in the last weeks in the White House was dithering and didn't know what to do, and he seemed, you know, flustered and you know, losing his way. Are you kidding me? Seriously, come on, man. Seriously, this is not a guy. If he's giving that flustered look, it's to throw the other guys off.
Yeah.
This is Casino Royale for the country, and there's no second place in Casino Royale, and so that he's using every trick in the book and all the games to get to right winning hand and position is not wrong. Trump not going forward back on December 18th. And by the way, I said December 28th in a couple of other interviews. I meant December 18th, and I was thinking something else. I apologize. But on December 18th, when he had that meeting with all of his advisors and the people that were, you know, trying to get him to sign the Insurrection Act, that was the day, by the way, that the Director of National Intelligence was supposed to provide the 45-day report on whether or not there was foreign interference in the election, and famously did not, and didn't actually provide it until January 19th. You know, over a month later, with no time to act before the exchange of people in office. So they wanted him to sign the Insurrection Act, do this other stuff. The reality is, had Trump signed the Insurrection Act at that time, it would have moved the country into civil war. To not understand that President Trump was very aware in his daily briefs of the efforts behind the scene covertly to try and create the context for a civil conflict on January 6th, when the Congress was supposed to certify the vote with the electors. And in the absence of the Director of National Intelligence providing that report on election interference, foreign election interference by foreign governments, when they did not do that, there was this background thing trying to create a context where Trump was trying to begin civil war in America. When he didn't sign the Insurrection Act on the 18th of December and didn't do what his, you know, Job's advisors recommended he do, it was because the country wasn't prepared for that fight. The data hadn't been and discussed and put out there, and by not stepping into that trap, he actually saved us against his own best interests, his own family's best interests, from civil war.
As you watch this stuff unfold on our southern border, what are your thoughts on all of that? I've been tracking a lot of stuff, and I'm watching them go to military bases, which is very unusual. But if I go and look at some of the watchdogs that are talking about, you know, the folks that are coming into Central America and coming up through Mexico into the US, that there are folks that, they're OTMs, right? They're other than monkeys, right? There are, you got your folks
Yes.
that are from Syria, you've got, Haitians and Venezuelans and Colombians and all kinds of folks that are coming into our country, including a lot of them are Middle Easterners, which is kind of surprising. What are your thoughts on that?
Well, it's horrendous. Couple of things. First off, how are these people getting over here from West Africa and then to the Americas and to get up through the border? Who's helping them do that? They're not getting here on boats. They're getting here on aircraft.
Yeah.
Who's flying those aircraft? Who's paying the money for those aircraft? It's not a tiny amount of money. And we've had the drugs going back and forth between areas down there in South America, around Venezuela and Bolivia and like that, over to West Africa and vice versa for a very long time. But those aircraft don't move without us seeing them and knowing where they came from and where they're going to. It's virtually impossible to actually hide any aircraft from our systems here on the planet. We know who's behind it. We know who's paying for the fuel. We know who the pilots are. We know a lot more than people, think might be known. And yet it's being tolerated. It's actually being encouraged. And the pipelines, the three-letter agencies, they know all the details and they're not doing anything to stop it. They're monitoring it. There's something horrendously wrong with what's going on there. And these people that are coming in, infiltrating the country across the southern border, the majority of them are actually coming in Guatemala and south. And so the reality, if we wanted to cut off this flow of people through Mexico, most of them aren't Mexicans.
Yeah.
These people that are coming across the border are first coming through down at Guatemala. That Guatemalan border is only 500 miles long.
Yeah.
And it is a much easier border to put a wall on, put a fence on, if you wanted to actually fix this problem. Mexico passes them right on through, puts them on trains and buses and gets them up to the northern border so they're not bogging down in Mexico. There's some need for cooperation, and we can put the screws to this stuff pretty quickly. We can shut the border down. If Mexico doesn't help us, we could shut the border down with Mexico like we did back when Camarena was killed, and they weren't giving us help to get to the executioners. There's a lot of things we can do that would force Mexico's hand, that would force the serious money of a couple of families in Mexico to decide to work with us to get this under control. But, somebody's getting their hand greased behind the scenes. It's unconscionable. And by the way, in war, and I know you have a lot of military folks, current and past, that listen to the show. Listen, when you go overseas, when you go look around the world, anywhere you go, past, present, future, wars are always fought by the children, kids. They're the front line. These kids that are coming across the border are literally being used just like kids walking the minefield, and to look for the mine to distract the rest of the troops to name the war. They run the kids across at the rivers, and then the faster kids, the older people that are actually able to move quicker and more lively, they'll be a mile up or down the river, while our border people are tied up with the kids trying to get across the river, young children, protect them, save them. The other older ones are running up and down the river across. And then when the kids do get here and they get in custody, Um, they're being shipped off around the country on aircraft, by the way, frequently, most of the time, sometimes by buses, but mostly on aircraft. And those aircraft are going all over the country, every single state. And they're being planted there, but they're not actually with family. And these are fairly young kids. They're with, people purported to be a relative or whatever. A lot of those kids, if they aren't going into some kind of, sex slavery, if you will, they're going into some type of servitude. And they're not going to have the right credentialing. They don't have an American experience. They don't speak the language. I have friends that work in some of the facilities in Texas. And in those facilities, one of them, we were talking the other day, she said that most of the kids that she's dealing with, and she's a pediatrician, 25 years, she said most of the kids that she's dealing with medical issues have extreme PTSD because they've been ripped away from their family. They don't know anybody. They don't even know the other kids they're with. They're extremely vulnerable. It takes literally months to even handle the kids that we have that are legitimately U.S. citizens, and their kids where some crisis, some trauma, some horrible thing has happened in a family, and a child ends up needing to be in the child care services. And then you throw all this additional weight of these other kids in there. It's horrendous. The thing I would say is this, because I know you have a large component of your listeners are believers. Believers or not, you could be an atheist, but listen to me. If you just want to talk karma, you cannot, there's sins of commission and sins of omission. You cannot allow the types of horrors that are happening to children under our watch to occur and not and be hard-hearted about it. Well, there's nothing I can do, and it's just part of the cost, and they're trying to get here. That's their problem. You can't allow this to happen on your watch and not have some blowback on you. Bad karma, call it that. You want God to bless America. You want God to protect America. You want God to, give us wealth and safety and everything else. What part is God supposed to bless? If you won't raise your finger to protect the innocent, why would karma, fate, favor you when you won't favor someone else that's defenseless, and then you act like you're defenseless against monsters? God bless America. Well, you be a blessing. Let's go be a blessing and try to help solve this situation. And part of the fix of this, because these children coming in like this, these aliens coming in like this, they're drilling holes in the foundation of America.
Yeah.
And you can only drill holes in the foundation so long, and then there's some kind of a catastrophic collapse, because it can only handle so much. The reality is this migrant storm flooding America, it's drilling holes in the foundation. America is washing away the material around the foundation, and it's only a matter of time until there's that that one moment, some little earth tremor, some other trigger, and bang, somebody decides to put a waterbed in their room or something, and the foundation just can't take that one little extra bit of weight. The whole thing comes crashing down. So we have to stop that to protect America, protect our foundations. And in doing so, we don't allow, if we cut off the ability for them to move these kids, take away the incentive to make that happen back at the source, then we're actually protecting these children from being a valuable tool, like an army, to a first wave, to absorb our personnel, our materials, so that they can bring the rest of the army in behind them to take over America or to damage America.
Yeah. So let me ask you, you've seen this part where they're flying people into Laughlin Air Force Base there in Del Rio. What do you think's behind that? My opinion is the reason they're utilizing a military base is because we can't get eyes on it. What do you think's going on that military base? I mean, there are plenty of other. You've got Del Rio International Airport, which is 5 miles up the street from that base. They could easily be utilizing for that location. What's your thoughts behind them using the military base versus regular civilian?
Well, out of sight, out of mind.
Right.
From even what you're looking at, we have lots of aircraft numbers. I had something here the other day where we tracked an aircraft. They loaded quite a few kids on it, and jet that took off in Central Texas went up to Tennessee. We knew the tail numbers. We saw the kids getting on the plane. One adult, like a dozen kids or whatever. And then we knew right where it landed in Tennessee. And we communicated with senior people there in the political arena, said, what the fuck is going on here? Where are they going when they get there? And we had actual eyes on it, where they got them in vans, took them, and they go to a building that's an abandoned building. You look at what happened. They moved them into another group of cars and dispersed off out into the sunset. We don't know if they're social workers. We don't know, we're told that they're social workers. Well, who's watching over them? Who's accounting for them? They didn't go to a building where they were processed in a courtroom or
right.
some other kind of facility. They're transferred in the dark of night, lost into the system. What's going to be the fate of those kids? Yeah. For all the issues that we have as a country, again, at this core level, if you won't protect the children, why would God himself lift his finger to protect you? And that includes not allowing them to be used in this way for us to be our system to somehow harbor them. The movie that I have been helping Jim Caviezel with, Sound of Freedom, and we did some showings around the country, getting our marketing budget covered, and for a release sometime early next year. And we don't have dates yet. There's still stuff to be worked through, but I think we're pretty close to nailing that. It's about child trafficking. And one of the interesting things in the last screens of the movie, Mel Gibson did the final edit on the movie, did an amazing job. I mean, phenomenal. And it was a little bit too long, and he got some key stuff tightened up, and just makes the movie spectacular. So in the course of saying that, there's one screen talks about there's more slaves on planet Earth today than ever in human history. And the majority of those slaves are children. We have a couple of great groups that are working. There's a group of moms there in Texas where you're at that are getting together right now, and I'll probably speak with them privately here shortly. Not on my watch. Mom's saying, no, not going to happen. Not on my watch, not in my world. Yeah. And they're going to come against this. This is critically important. We're America. If it's going to stop from anywhere in the world, it had better stop here and first. And that's what Americans do. And that's what we will do. And that's part of the salvation of America. You ask, what are we going to make it through this? Are we going to survive this? One of the tests, one of the challenges that I think is the most important, is the first stop, is before the world, God is as serious about fixing America, protecting America, blessing America, stopping this internal steel of America. But the cup is just about full. and you got to pick the lane, you got to pick the side, and God's weighing America in the balance. If you're serious about saving your country, get serious about protecting the innocent, and God's as serious as you are about protecting America.
Yeah, amen to that. All right, one last question for you, man. What do you see as the biggest threat to our country right now?
You know, if the enemy of America, which ultimately is the devil himself, if he could succeed in getting us to fight each other, everything that's going wrong with America is where we're being divided, one group against another group, black against white, you know, one sex against the other, against another that wants to be both sexes. You know, the rich, the poor. It's regional, state versus state. You do your vote correctly, and the other votes don't. The other states don't do their vote correctly, and now you gotta break up the union. If enemy can succeed in dividing us, then we lose. The policing side of government, which is the executive side of government, has failed to protect America, has failed to protect the Constitution, which is the contract between the American citizens and its government. It's failed to protect the republic, the union of states, states to states, that everybody plays fair between the states. So the executive side of government, the administrative side of government has failed. You follow military flights all the time. You're watching the military all the time, but there's an upper strata of the military that you're watching. Strategic Air Command, our strategic forces that are designed to protect us against nuclear attack and weapons of mass destruction. And that upper strata of the military, that upper tier, has not handed over control. As the next actions take place in America over the next many months, the American people have to realize that what occurs, especially oh, sorry about that.
That's okay.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah. What occurs, especially within the military side of things, is not incorrect, is not improper, but is totally lawful and will be done in a totally lawful way to protect the Constitution, the oaths that our service members have sworn their lives to protect America. We as a people need to recognize and thank God that they're there, that they understand their mission, and give them all the room to complete it appropriately. And you'll have a front row seat and be providing some of your people front row seats to much of that activity as it plays through later this year. And I think that is useful. Having the ability to have the honest conversation you have about movements and the way things are flowing, it adds a certain reality. I don't know quite how to describe it exactly, but there's some comforting aspect to seeing it with some level of plausible denial. You're doing some of the spending you get to discuss it, but it does help people to realize, nothing's happening. Well, actually, there's a whole bunch happening. You're helping to commentate on that, present some of that with, real data that's not hidden. And I think that it's gone a long ways to helping people to hang on, take deep breaths, and realize that this is being done, even if there's internal battles, command and control stuff. Our military is still there, still has a mission, is going to protect America, and we're going to support them. as it takes these next steps, because it's what's necessary. We were attacked in a digital 9/11, in a digital Pearl Harbor. And,
Well,
you know, and by the way, let me just add this. You know, a lot of people think that Trump is, you know, I've seen some comments here just recently, and there's been a couple articles out there saying that Trump's abandoned America and he failed us and he didn't do whatever. That's not true at all. President Trump has never wavered. He's never backed down. If he's held, it's to wait for the proper opportunity. You may not be aware of this. I've shared it with some other audiences, but if you bear with me 1 second, let me just share one thing with you. You know, in my book, the Kid by the Side of the Road, in the first edition, every page in my book had, doesn't show it very clearly here in our video, but every page has a cube on it. And so an orange cube. And I said on page 71, I said, therefore election 2020 will equal mega to the third power over corn. And so it's an E equals M3 to the third power over corn. And then every page of the book has a cube on it, an orange cube. So that's relevant because that came out last October. It went to print in July. In the second edition, which came out in April, I added something. And the reason I added it, and again, election equals mega to the third power over corn. Corn being all of these, what we call corn products, or the products that come from, we send guys to the farm to learn how to do intelligence operations and, you know, for FBI and CIA and other three-letter agencies. When they're done, we call them corn. So a guy like Zuckerberg, he didn't create Facebook. That was a DARPA project, and he was just handed it. Who has the power to hand him something that's worth billions, that cost the American taxpayers hundreds of millions of dollars to create and perfect, and then hand it over to a private party? And then that's being used to lord against the American people, to shut us down on our First Amendment and other people like him. He's corn. And so he's one of the people that was trying to control us in the election. President Trump was communicating to the American people all through his presidency with semaphore, the language of semaphore, which is the language of flags. And the flag staff was Melania. Every dress she wore during that presidency had a message. So the very first one was Melania wearing a Tiffany blue dress and giving a Tiffany blue box to Michael and President Obama there at the White House door. Well, the Tiffany blue is reminiscent of the era of President Kennedy and what was stolen from America, its future, the reversal, the steal that occurred via the perfection of the plot against America with the assassination of President Kennedy and the stealing of power for some of these globalists. That was what President Trump's presidency was all about. All through the presidency, he used Melania to convey messages. With that in mind, by her dresses, the last dress that she wore would have been a pretty important dress, wouldn't you think?
Yeah. Yeah.
So in every page of my book, I have the orange cube, and the orange cube is representative of MAGA, Make America Great Again, to the third power, cubed over these corn products that are trying to steal our country from us for the globalists, the Zuckerbergs and everybody like them. The last dress that she wore was covered in cubes. And by the way, and that was from January 20th.
Yeah.
Okay, of 2021, the last day as she got off the plane to go to their residence in Mar-a-Lago, there in Palm Beach. And so all of those cubes, you'll also notice something else. Look at the dress. Dark to light. And the cubes get bigger all the way. I'm telling you right now, President Trump, as the commander of the fleet, going into the dark of night, into the storm, didn't leave us without a message. His message was, it's still about election 2020. It's still about the American people striving, working, focused on making America great again, to the third power over this corn that's trying to steal our country from us for globalists. He hasn't given up on us. He still communicated a critical message to us before we went radio silent into the dark night, into the storm. We're going to see how this comes out when we come out the other side of it. I say we still got this. Enjoy the show.
Wow, man, brother, we will close with that. That right there just made my head spin. That's incredible.
Love you. Appreciate you tremendously. I think you're doing a huge service, not just for us here, but around the world. And, look forward to visiting again.
Yeah. Thank you, brother. I appreciate it, man. All right, folks, that's going to wrap up our monkey mission for today with the infamous Juan O Savin. Thanks for everything. God bless. Monkey out.